Imagine standing in front of a mirror and not recognizing the person staring back at you. Their eyes look empty, their spirit crushed. That was Daniel, a young man who once dreamed of greatness but now carried nothing inside except doubt and fear. He had talent, yes, but his mind was full of excuses, full of pain, full of noise. And that noise was slowly destroying him. Daniel grew up in a small town where dreams were treated like luxuries. People often said, "Dreams are for the rich. Boys like you should just survive." Those words became chains, tying him down before he ever had the chance to fly. His family lived from hand to mouth. His mother worked long hours, washing clothes for neighbors, her hands rough and swollen from a soap. His father, when work was available, came home exhausted, carrying the weight of bills that never seemed to end. Daniel saw the struggle daily, and with each passing year, he began to believe that his life would be no different. At school, the picture wasn't brighter. When he dared to talk about his big ideas, his classmates laughed. "You? Change the world? Don't make us laugh," they mocked. Even his teachers, the very people who were supposed to inspire him, looked him in the eye and told him to lower your expectations. The message was always the same: stay small, stay safe, don't dream too high. So Daniel started to shrink. He carried his books, but his heart was heavy. He smiled in public, but inside, he was slowly crumbling. Every time he tried to imagine a better future, those voices returned louder. "You can't. You're not good enough. People like you don't succeed." And yet, somewhere deep in his chest, a tiny flame flickered. He didn't know where it came from, but he could feel it. A restless urge to rise above, to push past the limits placed on him. But his head was too crowded. Fear, doubt, anger. Every negative voice screamed so loudly that the fire barely had room to breathe. Daniel wanted to believe there was more for him, but he didn't know how to silence the noise inside. One night, broken and tired, Daniel walked aimlessly along the road. His mind was loud, his heart heavy. He felt like a man drowning in silence. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed an old man sitting quietly by the roadside. The man's clothes were worn, his body fragile, but there was something striking about his presence. His eyes carried a calmness that Daniel had never seen before. Without even being asked, the old man spoke, as if he had been waiting for him. "Your mind is too heavy, son. Empty it." Daniel stopped. His brows tightened. "Empty it? How do you empty something you can't even see?" The old man gave a soft smile. "You carry too much inside you. Failure, rejection, anger, fear, they fill every corner of your head. There is no space left for courage or hope. If you want to grow, if you truly want to live, you must first empty your mind. Let go of what drags you down." Those words landed in Daniel's chest like a stone dropped in water, creating ripples that reached places he didn't know existed. For the first time, he realized the enemy wasn't just the world outside, it was the storm within. He wasn't losing because life was unfair. He was losing because his own thoughts were poisoning him. From that night, Daniel began his quiet battle. He started small. Each morning, before stepping out of bed, he whispered to himself, "I let go of fear. I let go of doubt." At first, it felt foolish, almost laughable. The old voices mocked him. "You'll never change. This is just a game." But Daniel kept going. Day after day, something shifted. His shoulders felt lighter. His steps grew firmer. He stopped comparing his life with others. He stopped bending under the weight of people's opinions. Slowly, he began to clear the clutter. Instead of filling his head with reasons he couldn't, he filled it with reasons he could. Instead of replaying his failures, he studied his progress, no matter how small. And instead of waiting for others to believe in him, he chose to believe in himself. Every morning, the whisper grew louder. Every night, the fire in his chest grew brighter. Daniel was learning the art of emptying his mind, and in that emptiness, he was discovering strength he never knew he had. Months later, Daniel's quiet discipline led him somewhere he never imagined, onto a stage. It was a small local competition, nothing grand, but to him, it felt like standing before the world. As he waited behind the curtain, his knees trembled, his palms were wet, and his heartbeat pounded so loud he thought the audience might hear it. For a moment, the old voices tried to return. You'll embarrass yourself. You're not ready. You'll never be enough. They echoed in his head, desperate to pull him back into the darkness he had lived in for years. But Daniel closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered the words that had become his anchor. I let go of fear. I let go of doubt. When the curtain opened and the spotlight hit him, he felt the familiar wave of panic. But something was different this time. His mind was empty. Empty of fear. Empty of doubt. Empty of the poison that had haunted him. And in that emptiness, he found room for focus, for strength, for courage. He stepped forward. His voice, at first shaky, began to steady. He spoke not from memorized lines, but from his heart. He shared his story, his pain, his hope. The words flowed out of him like water breaking free from a dam. The room grew silent, not the silence of boredom, but of attention. Eyes locked on him, hearts leaned toward him. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt seen. He wasn't the boy mocked for dreaming too high. He wasn't the student told to lower his expectations. He was a man who had faced himself, and won. By the time he finished, the hall erupted in applause. People stood, clapping with tears in their eyes. Daniel stood frozen, almost in disbelief. Not because he had impressed them, but because he had finally conquered the loudest enemy he ever faced, his own mind. In that moment, under the heat of the lights and the roar of the crowd, Daniel discovered the truth. Greatness isn't about being the smartest or the strongest. Greatness begins the moment you clear the noise inside your head, and give your true self the space to rise. From that day forward, Daniel carried himself differently. He no longer walked with his head down, avoiding the world. He moved with quiet confidence, not because life had suddenly become easy, but because he had learned how to silence the weight inside. People in his town began to notice. The same voices that once told him to stay small now whispered in or as he passed. But Daniel didn't live for their approval anymore. His strength came from within. He still faced struggles, of course. Life never stopped being hard. But the difference was clear. His mind was no longer crowded with fear, doubt, and anger. Instead, there was space for courage, for hope, for discipline, and for growth. Daniel understood something most people never do. To rise higher, you don't need to add more to your life, you need to let go. You need to empty your mind. And as he stood one morning on a mountain cliff, watching the sun break the horizon, he stretched his arms wide and smiled. Not because he had reached the end, but because he had finally found the strength to begin. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs a little push today. Don't forget to like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us all, we are stronger than we